5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
This is the 5 on Film podcast.
Hello and welcome to 5 on Film, the podcast where we try and break down the top 5 in the world of film. I'm your host, Paul. Joining me this week is John.
Hello.
Chris.
I'd like to thank the Academy for this award. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Matt.
Hey, people.
And returning once again, always welcome, Tony. Thank you for joining us again.
You're welcome. I promise not to hit anyone.
Here's how the show works. We've got 3 rounds, nomination, elimination, and ranking. We're each going to try and nominate a film that we think deserves to be on this week's top 5. If 2 or more of the panelists agree, it's going to go on our initial list until we hopefully get to 7 films. Then we're going to eliminate 2 of those films, leaving us with our top 5, and then we're going to rank the top 5. Just a quick reminder, anyone watching on YouTube, we're available in podcast form on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any of those. If you are listening to us on either of those platforms, we're available on YouTube if you want to come and watch us. And you can get in touch with us on all the socials at 5 on Film Podcast. That's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or email us at 5onfilmpodcast@gmail.com. We'd like to hear from you. Give us your opinions, your thoughts, and any ideas on future episodes. Yes, Alien vs. Predator is on its way. So this week's topic is Oscar Best Picture winners. We've capped it because we couldn't watch 92 movies. So we decided that it'd be a good idea to cap it somewhere, and we've gone with 1980. So we've gone 1980 to present. So any film that's won Best Picture from 1980 up until now, that's a possible 42 films for us to try and rank down to a top 5. One of our listeners suggested that I covered this, and this is how Best Picture works in the Academy. Now, in the Academy Awards, they nominate, each of the nominations get announced, and those nominations are decided based on the people and that belong to each category. So all the cinematographers nominate cinematographers, all of the directors nominate the directors, hair and makeup nominate hair and makeup, and so on and so forth. And then once all of those nominees are set, they're announced and they're put out as a ballot to everybody that's in the Academy, some 7,000 plus people. And then all of those Academy members vote for each of the categories, and they tick which one they think should win each category, except for Best Picture, where Oscar runs a preferential ballot, which means it asks every member of the Academy to rank the Best Picture winners from 1 to 10. So every single member is going to say their favourite and their least favourite of the year's nominees. And then to work out what the Best Picture, or in what I would say is the most well-liked picture of the year, they take all the number ones and they put them in piles, and you end up with 10 piles. And the pile with the film with the least amount of votes from the Academy is removed. That pile is removed. And then they drop to the number 2s, and they all get added onto the other piles. And they keep doing this until they end up with one pile that has over 50% of the votes. So the Best Picture winner is actually the most well-liked movie of the Academy. It's why in previous years we've had things like Roma, and even in this year, the front runners for the awards, the ones that have been often well-liked by the critics, haven't actually won the award. Roma was thought that it was going to win because it was probably got a lot of I have no idea on the actual numbers, but it probably got a lot of number 1 picks, but it said that it probably also got a lot of number 10 picks. So because it didn't have a median of its support, films that are often surprises do actually win Best Picture. So that's my little spiel about Best Picture. I hope that makes a little bit more sense to everybody that's listening or watching, that it's the Academy's 7,000 plus members most enjoyed movie that actually takes home the Best Picture statue each year.
Paul, I think we should change our voting system to match the Oscars.
Now you say that. I was talking to Paul the other day, and I said to him, "Look, I've had to mediate my my views on some of my films because I think they are a little bit too niche, the ones that I prefer." So
Yeah.
I may have gone a similar type of
it's not necessarily a bad idea. So we may address our ranking system and see if we can take something from the Academy. But all that being said, this week I'm gonna throw a curveball and I'm gonna say, Matt, do you want to give us your first pick?
I don't like it when you put me first.
I know, that's why I
don't like it. Well, okay then. All right, I'll take that challenge up. So I found like there's 42 movies. There's a lot of films in there that I would probably, if I were to do, because I've said this before, I've never done a considerable kind of like top 10 list. I've done a top 5 list of my own films that I love, and I try to buy them every time a new format comes out, you know, DVD, Blu-ray, and now in 4K. And I try to get copies of them each time if they are released or remastered. So I have done a top 5, but a top 10 to top 20, I find myself looking at these movies and thinking, do you know what, if I were actually to do a perfect top 20 of my own films, then I would probably find a lot of them within this 42 years, this 41 years, I think. And, and I look at them and I think, God, there's so much caliber there, huge wasps of caliber. And I did look at the list and find that when I broke it down and I got down to my core favorites, that some of them were, as I said, were a little bit too niche, perhaps, because you do still find, although what Paul said is exactly how they do vote for the Best Picture Oscar. A lot of them are broken down, as far as I can see, when you look at that list from top to bottom, with very niche ones, and then you've got the traditional kind of like Hollywood epic romance crowd pleasers that are in there as well. And I saw that a lot of my choices were coming from the same decade. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And it corresponds nicely with, I suppose, with my age as well. So with that being said, I am going to dive straight in with one of my pleasures, one of my favorite films of all time, which I absolutely adore. I try to watch it as often as possible. It's a Hollywood revisionist Western, I suppose. It revitalized the Western in Hollywood. We've not seen a decent Western for a good sort of 15 years. I think the debacle of Heaven's Gate, which was a film by Michael Cimino, who did the Deer Hunter, in 1981, I think it was 1981. It bombed massively, and Hollywood kind of like stayed clear of Westerns up until the point that this one popped in. So anyway, this is 1990. It's Dances with Wolves. Kevin Costner's masterpiece, magnum opus. He's made a lot of very long, very epic movies with varying degrees of success. But this one, I think, captured the hearts of the movie-going public. He himself took on directing role, producing role. He partially helped script it, although he's not credited for it. It won Best Picture Oscar. It won 7 other Oscars, including cinematography. Has the most romantic, beautiful, elevated score by John Barry, who you may know as the creator of the score of James Bond. Now, I went to the cinema to see this. This was 1990, so I had been about 11. And I remember going to the cinema with my friend, Andy, to go and see it, who I've no idea where he is nowadays. But we went and we felt so kind of like, adult liberated. We were like, because all we'd seen was films, that were PG. I think this was PG. It may have been the new 12 rating at the same time. But we went to the cinema, and at that point it was like 3 hours 20 minutes long, and I don't know why we went to see it, but I'm so glad we did, and I'm so glad that I managed to see it in the cinema, because the cinematography is absolutely stellar. It's stunning. A cinematographer called Dean Semler, who went on to win the Oscar as well. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. Kevin Costner plays a character called John J. Dunbar. He is an Army lieutenant in the Union Army during the Confederate Union War around 1860. And the film opens with him coming off the battlefield. He's got an injured leg. We don't quite know what's happening with his leg. Maybe he's been shot. Maybe he's had a sword cut on it or something, a bayonet cut. And he's in great pain. And the surgeon is trying to pull his boot off. And then they look at it and they go, "There's no way we're going to be able to get this leg sorted out. We're going to have to amputate." And Costner's awake at this time, and he can hear all this. There's blood everywhere. There's dust. There's the cries of horses. There's the cries of human beings. And the surgeons go away because they're so tired. They I think that one of the script lines is that he needs to go off and have a drink before he comes back to chop his leg off. So Costner's left on his own on the table, and he thinks to himself, "There's no way I'm having this. I'd rather die than have my leg chopped off. So I'd rather choose death." So he forces his boot back on. He gets up. He crawls outside. He finds himself a horse, and he attempts to commit suicide of sorts by going out onto the battlefield. There's this stalemate between the Confederates and the Union soldiers, and he rides his horse across the battlefield to rapturous roars, because everyone thinks that he's doing it to move the war forward, move the situation, move the particular fight forward from where they're stuck, they're mired down, they're bogged down. And this horse carries him across the battlefield, and all the generals on top of the hill can see it happening, and they think, "Wow, who is this guy? Who is this guy?" And everyone's cheering, and they're trying to snipe him, and he makes it across one way, and then he turns around and he finds he's not dead, so he thinks, "Well, sod it, I'll go and do it again." Goes across the other side, and this is all in the first 10 minutes. Anyway, this spurs his soldiers, his mates, his regiment on, and they come over, and the battlefield, and they win this small war. So anyway, he survives. He goes on, and he's in love with the frontier, the West. He wants to be away from everybody. He's had enough of war. He's not got any family, so he wants a post out on the frontier, out in the Nebraska wilds, out in the Great Plains. He wants to see it, as he quotes himself. He wants to see the West before it's overrun by white men and progress. So he goes out, and he finds that there's the fort that he's assigned to has been deserted, but he has interactions between the local tribes of Sioux Indians, the Lakota, the Pawnee Indians, and he becomes aggressed with them. So a burgeoning relationship not only develops between him and in the wilderness, but him and the frontier peoples that live out there. And it's just elevated by this most beautiful score. It's not for everybody, this film. I think it has aged a little bit. The cinematography is still wonderful. The acting is still absolutely stellar. I think the voiceover narration has aged a little bit, but I think it works with Costner's almost monotone delivery of it. I think it really works because you're in awe of what he's saying, and he's delivering these lines that he's writing in his journal. So we're discovering it just as he's discovering it. And there's a beautiful scene that he has with a wild wolf that's out there that he nicknames Two Socks, because it's got two white feet on its front paws, two white paws. And it's heartbreaking in scenes. It's exhilarating in scenes. There's a fantastic half-an-hour scene where they're chasing the Native Americans, and Costner are hunting the buffalo on the plains. It is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Now there's a couple of versions. There's the theatrical version and there's the extended version. Now the theatrical version is about 3.5 hours long, or maybe 3 hours 20 minutes. Which is a version that I saw at the cinema, which is perfect. That's the one that won all the awards, seven Academy Awards. And there's the extended version, which only came out 10 months, which is, I'm surprised to learn, 10 months after the original theatrical cut, because that was the cut. The extended 4-hour cut was the cut they wanted to get in the cinema, and they really struggled to cut out the 50-odd minutes in the first place, which is what they did to get it within a certain running time for people to, not fall asleep. So that was the cut that they wanted. So if you see a cut, see that one, but you can get them both usually on the same disc at the moment anyway. There are some sort of historical inconsistencies there, with the Pawnee being shown as more of an aggressing tribe against the Sioux than necessarily they were, because they were actually, if you do a bit of research, they were the smaller tribe. There's less than 4,000 of them, where there was many more Sioux Indians on the plain, because this is set in Nebraska, so it's north and south Nebraska, I think. Or was that? Yeah, north and south Nebraska, and Wyoming, and it was all filmed on location there in 1989. I love it. They speak, most of the film is spoken in the Sioux language, and there's a bit of a to-do about the apparently in the Sioux language there is the Lakota is their name for the Sioux. So the Lakota language is male and female gendered. So most of the film, the men are speaking the female gendered language of the Lakota. So there's a bit of a kind of like historical inaccuracy there, but Costner was praised by the Sioux, for the Sioux Nation, for finally showing the Native Americans in not just in the way that Hollywood had shown them in the many years before, when the Westerns were huge, as thieves, beggars, killers, aggressors, and they actually honoured them, Costner and his producer Jim Wilson, with an induction into the Sioux Nation themselves. So it's a beautiful, wonderful film, and I think it should be way up there in the top 10. Top 5 even.
Okie doke. I'll stick to the alphabet, which means that I'm going next, and it was really hard, like you said, to narrow down this list. We are literally littered with quality on this list. It's a film, a list made up of the best films of the past 40 years potentially, and some of. It wasn't right at the top of my list, but it's near enough for me to say yes. So I watched this movie. I remember owning this movie on DVD. I watched it when I was a lot younger, and it did stick with me. I was blown away when I first saw it. I haven't watched it as many times as I would like, but I have very fond memories of it. So I will say yes to Dances with Wolves. Tony?
Well, Matt's review was clearly the extended version. I'm going to be the theatrical version. I think it's a great film. I think a lot of it has to do with Kevin Costner. I think he's a fantastic actor that some people, I think, forget these days. He was, well, A, a heartthrob, and B, in a variety of fantastic films through the 80s and 90s. So I think a lot of this has to do with his probably sheer will of getting it onto the screen, and being a great actor and director. I don't know how many. Was this the first film he directed?
It was. I forgot to mention that this was his first. It was his directorial debut, and
wow.
He was the world's biggest star at that point in his career. In the late 80s, early 90s, Kevin Costner was the world's biggest star.
Yeah. But yeah, even in things like The Postman, I would say he's good. Even though it's not a great film, it's not as bad as everyone says.
I was going to say that's a film that's actually very maligned, and I actually think that it's not actually that bad.
No, I don't think it's that bad. I think it's better than Waterworld, which I nearly fell asleep in.
See, I think it's the other way around, to be honest.
Actually,
I agree.
The thing is, Waterworld is a Roger Corman script that ended up being fought over by big studios. That's the thing. So
they wanted another Costner hit.
Yeah.
This definitely wasn't a Roger Corman film. To have your directorial debut be so astute is, requires you to have a large degree of talent. So, and as for all the reasons that Matt said, cinematography, music, it's a yes from me. I would always go for the extended version as well over the theatrical, personally.
Wow. So Dances with Wolves is the first movie on our initial list. It has made it, Matt. Well nominated. John, would have you said it agreed to be in the top 7 of these 42 possible Oscar movies?
Yeah. I mean, I have a medium list. Because we've had a long list. We're now on a medium list, trying to find the 7. And yeah, this is a film that's pretty much stuck with me ever since I went to see it with my grandmother. I'll show my ignorance and say it's probably the first time I've seen an Indigenous people being understood and being part of the story instead of just being the bad guys, or just being the poorly put upon. You actually got it actually tries to go for the culture and an explanation for who they are, and I fully appreciate that, and the fact that in the story he's completely cut off from everybody. Everyone who knows he goes to that fort dies before he gets there. So literally he's in this fort on his own, waiting for people to come and relieve him. He sent messages out and the message never got through. And the guy who knows he's supposed to be there didn't want to be there anymore. And I think we've had these conversations before. I mean, on our Tom Cruise one, it was The Last Samurai, and things like, and basically it's the falling into a completely different culture, and you've only got this one way of looking at, one way of seeing it, and it's not black and white. Please help me, Matt. Is it Mary McDonald?
McDowell.
Yeah. She's great as well as the kidnapped child who grew up with the tribe as sort of the bridge. I mean, you could say in story terms it's a bit of a cop out, but at least a little bit, yeah. Yeah, but at least it was actually it's.
She wasn't Native American, was she? So it was a little bit of a kind of
Yeah, but but it could have been a whole lot worse than just being the young squaw.
Mm. Here comes the white savior and all that.
Exactly. So I really like it. And I
think it needs to go. I mean, it's on, but it needs to go. I mean, that score alone, that John Barry score, which I failed to say was my favorite. It is my favorite movie soundtrack of all time, beating out Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings soundtrack. It's John Barry, bang, every single time. Absolutely magnificent score.
Yeah.
Did it win best original, best music, best sound?
It did. Best score. It won 7. I'm not sure, but it was best score, best cinematography and director and picture, the ones that I've got written down here. But yes, but John Barry did win, yeah.
Would it have made your top 7?
I missed Dances with the Wolves when it came out, and I really regret missing it. I fortunately was given a copy to watch the director's cut, and I watched it just the other day for the very first time, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It was an amazing sort of Kevin Costner straight out the gate, his directorial debut. Just such an epic film, and it ticked a lot of boxes. And I actually watched sort of almost 10 films that spanned from the 1982, I think it was, pretty much the whole of the 80s. And including Dances with Wolves, and there was a marked difference in just the film quality and how it was made, just visually, and production values compared to the films that went previously for the last 10 years. And yeah, I agree with the sentiments. The score is beautiful. The cinematography is fantastic. The story is wonderful. And reading all this trivia on on Kevin Costner having to fund it himself because all of the studios were too scared about the amount of foreign language there was in the film, and how much subtitling there would be. So he had to use his own money for it. It's just, it's fantastic.
I mean, it made him so much money because he put his own money into it. I think it only cost 15 million to make, and it made 424 million around the world. And Costner put a lot of money into the actual budget, so he made himself an extraordinarily rich man from this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was obviously, incredibly confident that it would have worked. And ironically enough, he pushed the whole script and story. He knew that it was based on a book from 1988. I haven't written down who the guy's name is, but Costner actually knew him early on in the 80s, where he'd worked together when he was scripting. This guy was scripting another film that Costner was working on. They got quite friendly with each other. And Costner read the script, and originally Dances with Wolves was a script from the early 80s. There was a spec script. And Costner said, why don't you write it as a book? No one's making it. It's really interesting. No one's making it. Write it as a book, see if it gets published. And it did. And Costner picked up the rights for it for basically nothing. So, the whole thing was like Michael Blake. Thank you, Tony. So yeah, it's all credit. Costner knew what he was doing. So good on him.
Definitely. Well, there's 5 yeses, Matt. It has made the initial list, and I think it is a wonderful film. And 1990 was a film with a plethora of riches, because for me, it wasn't even the best film nominated, and we put it in the 7 there. The best film nominated was Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas, in my opinion.
So you can't argue with that. You can't argue with that.
But there is no doubt that Dances with Wolves was fantastic and deserves to be on this list. So I'm going to go second. This is weird for me. Yeah.
Floppy seconds. That's terrible.
I think he's just scared that one of us is going to take his film.
No. I just decided that I'd start somewhere different. So I started with Matt today, and I'm going by the alphabet. So it's me second. And I'm going to say father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. My pick for the second film that should go on this list is Ridley Scott's masterpiece that is Gladiator. It won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, took home Best Actor for Russell Crowe. And I just remember seeing this in either 99 or 2000, just being absolutely blown away by something this epic. I think I was 16 years old and just wasn't expecting something of this scale to be this good. It literally floored me. It's the story of a general in the Roman army who is passed down over the Commodore's son to take over and become the ruler of Rome in his stead, and he and his wife and his child are going to be murdered. He somehow survives and is taken into slavery and becomes a gladiator. And as those famous lines say, that famous line that Russell Crowe did not want to say, but was forced to say and became the most famous line of the movie, he got his vengeance. For me, this is one of the best pictures ever. So my pick is Gladiator. Tony, do you agree?
Gladiator would be in my top 5. So yes, I do agree. Big Ridley Scott fan. Russell Crowe, I think he'd done LA Confidential a couple of years before this, hadn't he? Which is what I really like him in. Charismatic actor, great score by Hans Zimmer. It's hauntingly beautiful at times, I think, the film. And I don't really like films with sad endings, but I really like this one.
It's not sad, though. It's not sad. He goes to
it's happy, but it's bittersweet, isn't it?
Spoilers.
And yeah, I mean, Oliver Reed's last film.
Yeah, he passed away 3 weeks before principal photography finished.
I believe they also did some jiggery pokery in the editing as well, to make sure they got it
that they did that, wasn't it? Or
I think,
I think it was
technology that they used to finish the Crowe.
Didn't three actors from it die during production?
Wow, I didn't know that. So.
Yes,
Chris. Yeah. I can't remember who that was, but I remember reading that somewhere. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's kind of inspired by all the old Hollywood epics of, the golden age of Hollywood, your Spartacus and
Ben-Hur, etc.
Yeah, I would say the only thing these days is some of the CGI is aged not.
Which ironically it won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects. So
I think a lot of that was the recreation of Rome, I believe.
Yeah. Joaquin Phoenix makes a good bad guy.
Yes.
Sword and Sandals epic. Yeah, definitely on my top 5. Can't go wrong. I'm a hard yes on Gladiator.
Nice one, Chris.
And the dialogue as well. I love that line as well. So.
Chris, is Gladiator up there?
I'm holding out my thumb. Oh yeah! You're not entertained. I was very much entertained by this film. I love it. I think it's great. It brought the Socks and Sandals epic back after so many years of it not being around. Russell Crowe is amazing in the film. It cemented him as a global superstar. I think it's one of Ridley Scott's best films. Certainly, I would say his best film of the millennium. The score's amazing. The fight scenes are fantastic.
Just a note with the music. It's Hans Zimmer and Lisa Gerrard.
Lisa Gerrard.
Yeah.
Another one that I have on CD. Yeah, another one I've got on CD. Fantastic.
Yes, two-pronged.
It unfortunately didn't win that year. It was nominated for 12 awards, but it only took home 5. But it did win for best sound, just not best score. So
it's a yes, thumbs up from me.
Excellent. Well, Gladiator has made it on the list. John, would have you said yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Where's the Judean People's Front? He's over there. Splitter. I actually, it's exactly what it says. Exactly what it says on the tin. It is a swords and sandals. It's tournament fighting. I was discussing our subject with my mother yesterday, and basically I didn't realize it was the fall of the Roman Empire, which I think is it's another film that was done back in the day. But I think because if you don't know the ending, the army was supposed to ride in. Basically, it was a complete turnaround and coup. But apparently, the story goes that they couldn't get the money for that, so they rewrote it into the more emotional one-on-one ending, as opposed to a big "I'm taking over the city." Russell Crowe, doesn't matter what you think of the man, he delivers. And also the chanting from the Germans at the beginning. Apparently they're African chants, because nobody actually knows what the Germans chanted when they went into battle. There's no record, so they repurposed.
That's brilliant. I like that.
Swahili, I think it was, or some other chants from Africa.
Artistic license.
Yeah, Ollie Reed plays it straight. I think Richard Harris does a really good job. You could say it's slightly overblown, maybe slightly long, but you know what? You still enjoy it. So yeah,
Nice fun. That's 4, Matt.
Oh, wholeheartedly, yes. Yeah,
Nice
without a doubt. This is on my list, and it's I've got 1 or 2 at the top, and then the rest of them are just kind of like mashed together. And Gladiator is in the middle of the mash. Love it. I think it's fantastic. I think to be honest with you, I think this is. We all know, Russell Crowe won the Academy Award for Best Actor for it. He's good. Yeah, I think he was better in LA Confidential, to be honest. But this is Joaquin Phoenix movie for me. And Ollie Reed, Ollie Reed should really have won a posthumous Oscar.
He should have been his best supporting on that one.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think he's fantastic in this. Wonderful. I mean, it's very Ridley Scott. But I agree with what Chris said. Was it Chris or was it John? I can't remember. He said this is probably his Scott's best film in a long time.
Chris
in the millennia, anyway. I do like Ridley Scott, but his output can be a bit up and down. So for me, this is one of his better films. It's just pure entertainment, isn't it? Absolutely pure entertainment. And they filmed the opening Germanic battle scene just on the road from me here, about 5 minutes away from where I am now, where they chopped away most of Bourne Woods near Farnham, and they created this whole bowl of. It's now like an army reserve where they go and do training and stuff. It's this huge area, but you just walk. You can go walk the dog or do your bike riding up there. They allow you on there, and it's still you can see where they put everything. Although the trees are all back now, where they cut them all down, they regrew them and they replanted and stuff. But fantastic. And you were talking about Tony about the Lisa Gerrard, the soundtrack. Now she the year before had done the soundtrack with this guy called Piotr Borg for another of my favorite films, which we've spoken about before in the Al Pacino pod, which was The Insider. She did the original soundtrack for The Insider as well. Right. And there are similar thematic vocals because she puts her own vocals down. So all these like a bit like Enya that you hear throughout the movie. They're very similar in both soundtracks. So yeah, it's another soundtrack that I own.
Did they go on to work together on Black Hawk Down as well?
No, we got to get Black Hawk Down in the podcast somehow.
Yeah, I mean Hans Zimmer. I think this is Hans Zimmer's most pivotal score. You see echoes of this score like throughout Pirates of the Caribbean, throughout Black Hawk Down, throughout all of his stuff, like for the last 20 years anyway. I love Gladiator. I think it's fantastic, brilliant. It's got to go on.
Excellent.
It has been on. So, yeah.
5 out of 5. It's the second film on the list. Tony,
5 ticks.
You are next. What do you think should be the third film that deserves to go on this list?
Well, I'm going to go with my namesake. I had his liver with a nice Chianti and some flava beans. I'm going to go Silence of the Lambs.
Nice.
Okay.
You look a bit.
No.
I think this is a fantastic thriller. It's.
Oh, Anthony. Oh, right. Okay. Got it.
Well, Anthony, darling.
Well, either that,
Anthony.
it was the cook part.
TT, Tony T.
It's just. I mean, everyone thinks about Anthony Hopkins in it, but it's really Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins back and forth that makes the film also tied in with a really good menacing bad guy who was based on several aspects of different serial killers throughout history. I think it's got great score, great performances. The atmosphere, I feel like it's dripping in atmosphere. At times it feels almost like documentary-like sometimes, I think, in some of its shots. And, who wasn't surprised when, the person in the back of the ambulance takes his face off?
Yes.
So, yeah.
John Travolta.
And I don't think they ever made a Hannibal film after this that lived up to it. You know, there was
I
no
like-
sequel that.
I like the way you use the word film there, because the television series very nearly did.
The
but
television
yes.
series is A+.
Yes, the television series
I was a
is
fan of
epic.
the TV series and Mad's interpretation, but
Yes.
you know, I guess Anthony Hopkins wasn't as scenery chewing in this one as he was in the later ones, and he's not in it all that much.
No.
You know, so yeah, I would just think it's great script. You know, all the secondary parts are played by great actors that bounce off well with the rest of the cast. So yeah, that's my selection. I was very tempted to go for another Western, but I'm going to go with that one.
Nice. Chris, The Silence of the Lambs. It's one of those rare ones that won what is deemed the top 5 Oscars. Is it going to make our list?
I was trying to think of a witty way of including putting lotion on itself.
Basket.
Oh, put Bunny Precious. Sorry, put Precious in the basket. Yeah, I love this film. I watched it far too young. I was on a plane to America when it had just come out, and I got to see it. And I've loved it ever since. I've been fascinated by it. I think Jodie Foster is immense in that role. And it was a shame that she didn't come back after that. That one film. It's just the twist is fantastic. You don't see it coming. The suspense with the lift. Just there's so much, and then the night vision in the house. Oh my god. It's definitely one of my favorite films. I would say it's in the top 10 of my films. I think I have 3 copies of it on DVD, different versions. It's great, and Anthony Hopkins is just brilliant.
He won Best Actor. I suppose there's an argument that he was a supporting actor, but he did win the Best Actor statue for this.
So I think he holds the record for the least amount of screen time for male actor to win, and Judi Dench is the female.
Oh wow!
Counterpart with that.
Did Marlon Brando not in The Godfather?
I only watched that yesterday, actually, because it's
The Godfather
anniversary this
week.
Yes.
The first time?
No, on my Blu-ray. I haven't watched it in ages. I want to watch the new Godfather 3, so I thought it's perfect time to watch them all. So I've been watching part of Godfather 2 today, besides the Oscar films that I hadn't seen.
I know that he didn't have a lot of screen time, so maybe it is very comparable with Sir Anthony in this role. John, is The Silence of the Lambs going on this list?
Yes, it is, and actually, this is one of those rare beasts, an award-winning horror film. Although they'll call it a thriller, but actually, it's an award-winning horror. It's a horror film. I probably came to this during the hype because I wasn't in a household that I could get hold of the video or watch it. So actually, I came to this via the books, via Thomas Harris's books, and they are really good. Not to tell anyone anything they didn't already know. It's actually all about Clarice. It's all about Clarice Starling. I mean, she is literally going around as a newbie, falling into all these traps, being dealt all these tricks. All her bosses and everything are really messing her up, kind of expecting her not to be able to do it. And it's all a complete fluke. Ted Levine is great. He's just really creepy down the well in the hole. Things like the Vaseline under the nose for the autopsies and the things like that are all little little bits are really good. I think Red Dragon is actually reasonably close. So just the problem with Red Dragon is the fact that it had already been done before, and really all they were doing was making sure that Anthony Hopkins was lecturing both.
I agree, John. I think Red Dragon's pretty close.
Yeah,
I think it's good.
I think Red. I love. Really
which one
like
are you
Red
talking
Dragon.
about, Manhunter or the
No,
Red.
I'm talking about
Red Dragon.
Yeah.
because that's the one they made after, when they should have made it before.
Yeah.
And
I really liked it because I saw it before I saw Manhunter. So I think
right.
so I came to Red Dragon not having seen Manhunter.
Nice.
And I think Red Dragon is brilliant because of that.
You see, the thing I've seen both of them. I saw them in the right order. I think one is a Michael Mann 80's amazing film, and the other one is a very very good prequel to The Silence of the Lambs. The reason they made it was because A, they had the rights, and B, they just kind of wanted to round it out so that Anthony Hopkins was Hannibal in all the films of all the books.
Yeah.
So and I can see why. But yeah, Silence of the Lambs, yes.
3 votes is on the list. Tony, we've had 3 for 3. Matt, what have you said yes to The Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah, I would have done. Silence of the Lambs is my joint number 1 with Dances with Wolves. And the reason I went with Dances with Wolves first, because I went to see that at the cinema, was Silence of the Lambs. I wasn't old enough, but my mum, in her ultimate wisdom, rented the video for me, not knowing what it was.
Wow.
When it had just been released. So I must have been 12 when I saw it. And in all fairness, I didn't understand a lot of the stuff that was going on there. So when they were putting the linctus on the nose, the smelling salt stuff, I didn't understand why that was. Obviously, it's the stench of rotting flesh. I didn't understand the skin suit. I had no idea what he was doing when he was he was stitching the skins. I had no idea, and I don't want to. Well, we've already spoiled most of it anyway. But when
dancing around in the dressing gown.
The scene where he's in front of the mirror, much like we are now, imagining in front of the mirror, and he stands up. He's he's tucking in under and stuff. I didn't understand any of that as a kid of that age, but it made an impression on me. It scared the living hell out of me. The absolute willy gave me the willies completely. And I was a kid that grew up watching Twin Peaks, the original Twin Peaks series that was on BBC Two, which also scared the willies out of me at that similar age, similar time, similar age. And I got a similar vibe from it. From the David Lynch and the Jonathan Demme there, I got a similar vibe from those 2 films. And I loved the movie. And I never told them that I was so scared from watching it. And it's remained one of my most loved and respected films that I have, that I try and collect, as I said early on. And I would hasten to say that you lot might disagree with me, but I would hasten to say from 1980 to 2021, or this is they're called the 21 Oscars, right? The ones that happened yesterday or the day before, although they're 22 Oscars. The last year, so they're 21, right?
It's the Oscars. It's the Oscars celebrating the films released in 2021. Yes. So from 80 to now to present day, I would hasten to say that The Silence of the Lambs is the best film out of all of them.
Whoa!
Out of all of them, I think the acting is just absolutely stellar. We've said that before. The soundtrack, which ironically is Howard Shore again, who did Lord of the Rings, one of my favorite. The soundtrack is so pitch perfect. That opening montage of Clarice running on the FBI training course, with the music, with the cuts that they're making there, with her getting her introduction to Jack Crawford, who ironically they tried to cast Sean Connery in that role. No, it wasn't. It was Gene Hackman. And Gene Hackman turned it down because the script was too violent. And he got to the point where they were about to show him the FBI tapes of 2 serial killers, which they only keep these murder tapes. They record the audio of their murders, where they horrendously murdered 16, 17, 18-year-old girls in Southern California in the late 70s. And they recorded it all on tapes. And the FBI said, look, we only show these tapes to people who want to become part of the behavioral science unit. and then never to be released anywhere. But they released them because they wanted this Jack Crawford role to have realism. So Gene Hackman apparently heard a few minutes of those tapes, and he went, "No, I don't want to do the film." So he turned the film down. He originally helped buy the script. Wow. So it's fantastic, and Scott Glenn did an amazing job anyway in that role. But it's Jodie Foster's role, and she'd only just won the Oscar, right, a couple of years before for The Accused. So she was on a power role for her. She was absolutely magnificent in this. And Anthony Hopkins, he based his voice, didn't he, on Hal from 2001. He tried to incorporate that kind of monotone menace in his voice. And they, the other films were good. The Ridley Scott, I quite like Hannibal. It's not brilliant. It's a bit showy and a bit Ridley Scott, like we said early on with Gladiator. But once you uncage Hannibal Lecter, it doesn't have the same effect, for me anyway. Which is why Red Dragon is still pretty good, because he's still in prison there, right? In Red Dragon.
Yeah. There's a few flashback points, but
a few flashbacks, but Silence of the Lambs is just a monumentally perfect film. You cannot make a better collaboration of all creative input. It's just perfect. It's just unfortunate that it can only be seen by a few people, because it is very, very adult, and it is it's very scary. 12. I was 12.
I was 9.
Wow.
My auntie had gone to see it at the cinema because she was a horror film fan, or still is. She told me about it. My mum was like, "No, you're never to see that film." But then she told me about the face peeling scene.
That's not even the worst bit.
No, it's not.
I don't know. It's just like unexpected.
Yeah. It's
she
incredible.
Told me the friend she went with left the cinema.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Go back in.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't really like gore in films all that much. But I was like, I've got to see it.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely more of a thriller. It's more of a thriller for me than a horror. But the bit where she goes looking in the lockup is, for me, is the scariest bit, where she's getting the key and she finds the guy with his head in the jar of formaldehyde. And that whole sequence where she can't get open the door, the lockup door, and it just, like, she has to get the old guy who's like, "I can't help you," and this old creepy guy who's wearing like an old Munsters kind of outfit with his long cloak. He looks like Vincent Price. He's like, "I can't help you, I can't," and she's got to lever it up, and the sound effects are just of this door. She's ratcheting up with just absolutely phenomenal film.
It is indeed, and it was in my top 5 of this list that I made beforehand. I had a solid top 5 that I made, and it was in that top 5. So it is a yes from me. We have 3 films, all with 5 yeses. So The Silence of the Lambs has made it on the list. Chris, can you carry on this run?
The pressure is insane. So
look, you've got another 15 you can choose, mate.
Well, I don't think that helps, John.
No,
there is so much quality.
I mean, I think this is another list, which it's quite rare for us on 5 and Film, where we could pick 5, and then there'd be another 5 quite easily, which could legitimately be the top 5 films. So this is a really tough. This is a tough pod for me. Because there are just
have done
so
it decade
many.
by decade, couldn't we?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've okay. The one I'm going to pick is very dear to me, and it won Best Picture in 1996, and it's Mel Gibson's Braveheart. And I adore this film. I own the sword from the film that was used. I just love this film. It's epic. I think Mel Gibson watched Dances with Wolves and thought, "Oh, this Kevin Costner's done all right, hasn't he? I reckon I could do that." And he took what he saw and he made it even better. It's about William Wallace leading a rebellion against Edward Longshanks, King Edward I, when in the 12th century they wanted to phase out the Scots and get rid of them. So they launched this campaign in Scotland to wipe the Scots out, and William Wallace and other clansmen decided to launch a rebellion against the English, and it's just beautifully told stories. It won 5 Oscars, including Best Director and Best Cinematography. James Horner did the score, which is again another beautifully haunting score, really ethereal, and it's just amazing. The fight scenes are immense. They actually had the RSPCA report Mel Gibson and the production because they thought these animals were being killed, but they were all animatronic. And it's got a love story in there. It's really funny. There's a lot of humor, and it's a fantastic film. It's one of my top films in this list, if that's even possible. I don't think there's a dull moment in it. It's very clever. There we go. Braveheart.
John?
Yeah.
Braveheart. Is this going to make the list?
As Chris says, there can be 5 good films, and then there can be another 5 good films.
Yeah, there can.
And I'm very aware that this is actually we're doing all right at the minute. We've got a couple of big epics, and then we've got we
can go to 8. We can go to 8.
I know.
We can get to 8 if we need to.
I know. I'm looking at the balance. To be fair, I'm looking at what I'm going to suggest as well. Braveheart. How does he stand on the Scottish accent, Chris?
Very well, really well.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, considering he got that right, but he kind of got to be about 6'6", it kind of evens out a bit. Take it with a pinch of salt, as the legend it is. I really like it. I think it's great. I think it's a hero's journey with historical trappings. Patrick McGoohan still going strong when he made it. It was great.
Oh, so evil.
Yeah. He just has absolutely no regard for
face falling apart.
Yeah. I also shout out for Patrick Bergen as the Irish prince who comes along and helps out on the battlefield. I don't know about you guys, but apparently I'm fine. So there's not really much you can say about this apart from the fact that it's epic, it's brilliant, it's large, and it didn't shy away from the nasty bits.
Well, that's one.
True.
Matt? Braveheart? Is it going to go
on? Yes, it is. It's on my list. It's on my shortlist. It's Gladiator before Gladiator. It's Dances with the Wolves after Dances with the Wolves. It really is that Hollywood. It's Hollywood best Oscar film, best film bait, isn't it? Really, it's that historical. It's got an in vogue director.
It never said
actor.
based on a true story.
No, it didn't,
so-
but it doesn't have to because it's
No, exactly.
because it's exciting. It throws me back to all those movies that I watched as a kid that starred Charlton Heston. That I would absolutely El Cid and all those other ones that I can't remember. And you can't not watch Braveheart and not enjoy it. It really does have that something that just brings you in and captures you. And I think a lot of it has got to do with Mel Gibson's charisma because, let's face it again, much like Costner was at the point, the mid-90s, Mel Gibson was huge. He was a massive star.
Yeah.
A massive star. And he directed one movie before this, right? I think he'd done The Man Without a Face. Is that right?
Yes.
Which is a good movie.
I really like that one as well.
It's a good movie. It's a good little indie movie, as it were. Very, very good. And he showed his hand here. He really he knows what people wanted to see, and it's got a great supporting cast. Brendan Gleeson's brilliant in this. I love it. He's fantastic in this. I like this scene where Gibson comes back as a 20-year-old, and Gibson's like 40, and he comes back as a 20-year-old, and he's like, "Oh, hi, how you doing? How you doing?" And they're doing their Highland game, or they're doing some sort of Scottish games, and Brendan Gleeson's is he throwing something, or he throws something, it hits him on the head or something like that.
A stone.
He hits a stone on his head. And I said to John earlier when John was talking about Patrick McGoohan, I got him confused with the guy who played Robert the Bruce's father, who's the one who's got leprosy. Who's another famous actor who I can't recall. How can you not give a place to look at him? Hey, look at he's like. It's a solid yes for me. I love
nice one.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Nice one. Tony, when you said yes, it's made the list.
Yeah, I really like this film, and Mel Gibson, despite his shortcomings, charismatic
actor. Non grata. Yeah.
Loved Riggs in Lethal Weapon.
Yep.
And this was kind of on the edge of my would it make the list. So if Chris can say for me the famous line, it'll be a yes.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
It's on. It's a yes for me.
Hey.
Nice one. I was in a similar position to Tony where I would have been hard pressed if it had come down to me like with 2 yeses and 2 nos, but with 4 yeses already, I'm quite happy that it had made it. So yes, Braveheart has made the list. We are 4 for 4. John,
wow,
can you make it 5 for 5?
Come on, John.
Right. Well, I want to change your pace.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm actually gonna go with a foreign language film. I'm gonna go from from the one in 2019. I'm gonna go for Parasite.
Sorry. Carry on, John. Carry on.
No. I'm going to carry on because actually, I think this is a very good film. I think it's we've been a lot of the films on this list. Well, a lot of the films on our short list, shall we say, that have cropped up so far have been big, bold, epic. They're all about 3, 4, 5 hours long. And you can imagine them being made in the 50s and 60s in the golden age. I think this one is very, very different. And I think this is kind of what you want from the Oscars. It's twisty, it's turny. I don't know how deep to go down the rabbit hole in this one. I'll probably just go with the setup. The opening idea of the story is that there is a family who are on the wrong side of the tracks, who are really down on their lucks, living in a basement flat off a road. They're struggling to get data to keep data on their mobile phones, keeping it up to date. And they're definitely kind of on skid row in in South Korea. Cut to the son of the family. There's the mother, the father, the son, and the daughter. The son has gone out and got himself a job as a private tutor to a rich family's daughter, and he's working his way through. He's basically, while he's there teaching this young girl, I think it's maths, but basically tutoring this young girl, he's scoping the house out, and he's finding out who's who, what's what. He's finding out about the housekeeper. He's finding out about the family, and then slowly but surely they start to inveigle the entire family onto the payroll of this family. The father becomes the chauffeur for the father. The mother becomes the after some shenanigans involving strawberries, becomes the housemaid and cook, and the daughter, I can't remember how the daughter gets in. It's been a while since I watched it, but still, you really do not know where this film is going. You could guess all day long, and you will have absolutely no idea where this is going to end up, because it has no easy arc. It's a story about four grifters who really don't want to do any harm to the people. They are being a parasite on that family. They want to be part of that family's life, so they can tap off what they need to do. And in one scene, they end up actually the rich family go away for the weekend, and they take over the house and drink all the wine and eat all the food, and then the family come back and surprise them, and they all get caught in various positions while various things happen. I really like this film. I think it's not epic, it's not grand, but the fact is that it's one of those films which it's definitely one of the best of its kind, if you knew what kind it was. So I think this deserves a shot on the list.
Okay. Parasite. Matt, did you see this one? And
yeah, I have seen this one.
Is it worthy of the top 7?
Well, I am glad John has brought this up, and John knows that I like this film, and John knows that I like this film immensely. I love the director. He's one of my favorite directors. I agree with John. I think this is exactly what Oscar is all about. This is what, for me, it's all about. I know we discussed earlier about, ironically, the films perhaps that we've listed already that are big crowd pleasers, they're big epics, they're big romances. Doesn't necessarily mean in an agenda sense or in a relationship, but also with cinema, romance with cinema, like epic. Whereas this is more for me. This is very much like this year's Oscar with my favorite of this year, which was The Power of the Dog. If I've said the right title.
Yes.
Yeah. I think
The Power of the
right,
Dog. That was for me, this is the kind of film I think Jonathan Demme would have made. Silence of the Lambs, Jonathan Demme would have made had he still been making films and been alive, making films now. It's a fantastic, dark, sly, satirical, delicious look at modern day class, social class. And it doesn't matter that it's South Korean, it could be anywhere in the world. It's very funny. I find it extremely darkly funny. I love the main actor. I can't remember his name. They're all written down here, but I won't even pretend to pronounce them. But he stars in a lot of Korean movies. Pardon? Memories of Murder is the same director. And I'd also recommend seeing Madeo, which is Mother in Korean, which is another brilliant one, more along the lines of Parasite. And it's beautiful to look at. What they do in Korea, in South Korea, Korean movies, is they're this is going back to my film school classes, mise en scène. You know, the scene layout, the scene breakdown with what's in the scene, what's production design, what's been set up in a particular place, what's been framed right, what the composition is. Everything is leading you in a position into a point that the director's trying to make. And I'm really glad that John didn't spoil anything, because unfortunately, talking about this film, you can't really go too far about it, because it isn't exactly what it seemed. It's a Pandora's box. It's a twisty Chinese puzzle box. Although it's not Chinese, it's Korean, but let's say a Korean puzzle box. Although the analogy is a Chinese puzzle box of a movie that isn't quite what it seems in the end. And I love it. And there's a reason that a foreign language film finally won the main prize at Oscar, and I'm glad it's this. I love it. And this, along with a couple of others, are my ones that were a little bit too niche that I didn't think might get on there. But John's been brave enough to stand up and put on there, so I will do it as well, because I do have it on my list.
Cool. I'm going to be the first no of the night, John. And that's not because I don't enjoy this film. I think it's a very put together film. I enjoyed the twists and turns. I went to see it at the cinema before it won its Oscar, and very, very much enjoyed it. It didn't matter that it was in. I vividly remember sitting in a sold out auditorium for a foreign language film. That doesn't often happen in the UK. So I was pleased that happened. I was pleased that the hype it's got, and I think it is a worthy Best Picture winner. But for me personally, there are a lot more. There's 42 films available here, and there is so much quality, as we've said. And for me, it doesn't break into what I would deem my top 12. So sorry, John, it's a no from me. Tony?
I mean, Donald Trump was totally wrong when he said, "Why did this film win the?" Because he piped in, didn't he, when it won?
Donald Trump did, yes, yeah.
What a schmuck.
Yeah, I think it's a great film. Like you said, Paul, I reckon, definitely Oscar-worthy winner. Really enjoyed it. My girlfriend loved it. But like you, I think there are other films on this list that I would prefer being in the top 7. I mean, I think the actors are great. Yeah, I don't really have many faults other than I have other films in my list that I would prefer being in the top 7. And I saw Memories of a Murder as well, which I actually think I slightly prefer to Parasite. But
it's very good. It's a wonderful movie. Try and check out Mother as well if you get a chance to.
And speaking of South Korean films, I think I mentioned to you guys on the WhatsApp, Midnight is a South Korean film that I watched just recently. Brilliant. All about the mise en scène in that as well, Matt.
They love it. They love the Korean directors. Love their
that's a really
composition.
good film. I would highly recommend it. It's a really good thriller, and it keeps the pace going as well.
Excellent. Well, we're 2-2 at the moment. Chris, you get to decide whether Parasite makes it on this list.
Well done, John, for nominating it. I think it's a significant film, and it's important because it definitely reflects the changing face of cinema and Hollywood, and it's going in a far more culturally accepting direction, which is really good. But personally, I just did not get this film. I did not like any of the characters. I thought they were all horrible. Maybe except the wealthy mum. I mean, she was very well intentioned, but it was very misogynistic. I did not like it. I just didn't understand the hype. there was one standout moment for me. Oh no, two. Sorry. The first was when we see a surprise character emerge from the darkness from these stairs, and you just see this face appear, and that was brilliant. Sort of K horror, and the second was the working class family's apartment gets flooded, and the toilet is just spewing out sewage.
But he doesn't just get flooded. It's below ground to start. So it just literally
underwater.
It's a swimming pool.
And the daughter is just sitting on it quite casually, with this shit just spewing up from underneath her. I like that, but that doesn't warrant being on this list for those two very small reasons. So it's a no from me.
Okay, we've had our first no, I'm afraid, John. So we have 4 movies. We have Dances with Wolves, Gladiator, The Silence of the Lambs, and Braveheart. So
all within a 10-year period.
Yes, they're all.
Is it? Is that what?
All 1990 nominees. So I know. Well, Gladiator was awarded in 2000, but it was released in 1999. So yes, they are 1990 movies. Yes. So Matt, are you going to give us another one from the 90s, or are you?
Yes, I am. I'm going to give you another one from the 90s.
Go for it.
Oh, look, I would love to give you the one that I really want to put on, but I don't think people will vote on it. And I'm not as brave as John, so maybe later if there's a spot, which it's in my favorite films of all time. So this is also up there. It's one of my favorite films of all time. And this was the other Western that Tony was on about, because I love Westerns. Yes, I do. I love Westerns. So this is 1992's classic bad guy done good, revenge, tragedy, anti-hero, Clint Eastwood, magnum opus. This is Unforgiven. Clint Eastwood as William Money, as a nasty piece of work, who in later life has discovered kindness and humility and character that he never possessed when he was a young man. This movie just blew me away when I saw it. I was I didn't see it. I didn't see it early on in the 90s. I saw it quite late in the 90s. I was at university and we were doing a course where we were looking at I want to say we were looking at fame. It wasn't fame. We were looking at screen persona, I think, and what that encompasses for people who take on more roles than one in Hollywood. So, actor directors, producers who do more than one sort of creative role. And Clint Eastwood was the subject for that month. He's got a great depth and breadth of movies. He started directing in the early 70s after his great mentor Don Siegel, I think it's Don Siegel, who was a big mentor of his, who directed some of his films that he acted in. So anyway, Eastwood always loved Westerns. He was a Western actor. When he was younger, he made Westerns for many different directors, not least the spaghetti Westerns. And it was unsurprising that he would move into directing Westerns himself. And he's done many, High Plains Drifter, Pale Rider, The Outlaw Josie Wales, which is another one of his absolute masterpieces. Anyone who's into Westerns, please see Outlaw Josie Wales. But I think for him, Unforgiven is his number one film, his number one directed film, and he's done a lot of very, very good ones. So this is at its core is a revenge movie, and we're cheering for the underdog who used to be the bad guy, and we have perhaps who is viewed as a good guy, the Gene Hackman role in this, who plays, I think he's not the sheriff, is he the town sheriff, or is he the town mayor? I can't remember. Maybe he is the sheriff. Yeah, and so he is the good guy who's the bad guy. But it's all very vague and it's all very grey. There's a huge grey area, and that's where life is. That's where we are with life. There isn't black and white, and it's why it's so relatable. And why I suppose they view it as a revisionist Western. And not only is it part of that core Western group started by Dances with Wolves that Hollywood started to make again, driven by these actors, directors who loved those movies that John Ford made and the like back in the day in the 40s and 50s, those great movies, High Noon and movies, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, and I could go on. Anyway, so the plot basically is you've got Morgan Freeman, you've got Gene Hackman in it, you've got Clint Eastwood, you've got Richard Harris who's playing. Does he play an Englishman in this? I can't remember.
Basically, it's
English Bob. Yeah, English Bob.
Yeah,
he's a bastard as well. He's a bastard as well.
Well, he's another gunman.
And yeah.
So I mean, do you want the rest of the setup?
No, you can go. Okay? You can go. Let's step in there. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, well, basically, what it is one of the local good time girls gets badly beaten and attacked, and basically the girls club together to hire somebody to sort it out. And the first guy to turn up is Richard Harris's mercenary, and then Morgan Freeman and Clint Eastwood are approached by a young lad who's trying to make his name.
That's it. Yep.
So
that's brilliant.
You take it from there, man.
No, don't. You've done it. I jumped on this one because 4 of mine have already been taken. But for me, Unforgiven's down there. They're making notes on it. It's been a while since I've seen it. So John, please carry on, because I'm assuming that John, it's on your list.
I know the film. Not to tip my hat.
Nice.
But yeah, basically, Richard Harris's character goes in first, and Gene Hackman basically says, "We can't have this kind of thing here." So basically, he's trying to keep the peace, but he's not kind of backing up the women. So that's why they keep coming, and he sends Richard Harris home black and blue and beaten.
But he plays a plutocrat. He plays a character who will not release control of his town, no matter the moral circumstances.
Yeah,
and
then the young lads Morgan Freeman and Clint Eastwood walk into town, and they proceed to try to carry out the contract with varying degrees against. Basically, Gene Hackman isn't actually the bad guy.
No, he's not.
Basically, and so they go around trying to take out the gang who are the bad guys, and Gene Hackman's trying to keep the peace. But Gene Hackman knows who William Money is.
But there's history
from
reputation. From reputation, yeah. So the Schofield kid is the young lad who fancies himself as a killer.
Yeah,
who really in reality isn't. And there's so many layers to this movie. It's the script is sensational. It really is. The character layers of it, the depth involved, the way that Clint Eastwood lost out his acting award for this. He was nominated for Best Actor as well, and he lost to Al Pacino for A Scent of a Woman, which was a bit of a shame. I would say Clint Eastwood was better in this than Al Pacino. Anyway, it's another Western, but it didn't have to be a Western. It could be a thriller. It could be a cop thriller. It could be set in modern day. This kind of level of character driven drama, revenge drama, could be in any time period. Doesn't matter. It's a beautifully shot, desolate American West. It could have been set in a beautifully shot, desolate, broken down Detroit or Philadelphia of modern day. It's a film that transcends its time period, and I think is as relevant now as it ever was. I think it's next to the Silence of the Lambs for me. It's one of the most relevant and important movies on this list. From 1980 to 2021.
I'm going to echo you. This is the greatest Western ever made, in my opinion.
Ooh,
I haven't.
That's controversial, I think.
In my opinion, because I've seen far less than I would like to. I would like to see a lot more Westerns, but it's the greatest one I've seen. Put it that way. And I think it was in my top 5 of this list. I think it is outstanding. I think the direction is brilliant. The acting is brilliant. Gene Hackman is just phenomenal in this role. He's not the bad guy, but you do hate him. And Clint Eastwood's character kills people for money, and has done for years. But you love his character. But
this is how it changes, because we start with he's the bad guy, he's the good guy, or so we're told, and then the roles are reversed throughout the film, and that's how well it's played.
It is outstanding, and for me, it is up there with one of the best films that has won Best Picture in the last 40 odd years. So it's a big yes from me, and I think it's going to be a yes from Tony because he's tipped his hand earlier. So Tony,
I saw this in the cinema actually, and I didn't appreciate it at the time. I came back to me in later life that I learned to love it. It was more when I'd seen the Fistful of Dollars trilogy when I was just a little bit older. That I went back to this, and for all the reasons you guys have stated, I think it's a great film. Clint Eastwood is an icon of cinema. Still with us in his 90s making films. I mean, that alone is amazing. Yeah. I mean, again, might depend. It might be questionable about his personality-wise some of the stories here, but I'm a definite yes on this. It does. I'd read an article on this once that said, because Will Money's name, I think that's not his actual name, is it? It's the name he's taken, isn't it, or something like that?
Okay, I didn't know.
Or am I?
I think his name was different when he was a murderous bastard in his youth.
Yeah, so a lot of people, and I think this may have been in Clint Eastwood's mind, is that it is a continuation of The Man with No Name, really, and it's his kind of, epilogue, really. And also, I guess, he goes back to gunfighting in the end, doesn't he, to support his family?
At the end of the movie?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No,
he goes back, doesn't he, to support his family?
Yeah.
He's
on the straight and narrow. This is a while.
Goes back. So it's almost like, even when you're as old as he is in this film, a leopard can't change its spots.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. So definitely yes from me. I don't think it's the best Western ever. I'm a very big fan of the Man with No Name trilogy, and I think any one of them is superior to this film.
I will unfortunately say that I am only partway through all of those movies. And I am rectifying that. So I mean,
I've got a particular love of For a Few Dollars More, because like the little I've
only watched one of them. I've only watched Fistful of Dollars.
The Man with No Name is essentially what Mandalorian's ripped off, isn't it? And the music of the Mandalorian is essentially the jingle from a few times more.
I must say, being a massive fan of those movies, that definitely watch Yojimbo and Sanjuro, the Kurosawa movies that they're both based on, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Do you know what's the one after that? It's called Duck Duck something, or
yes, I know which.
I've never seen that one. I've never seen that one. There's like a fourth one, isn't there?
Yeah, with not with Clint Eastwood.
Not with Clint Eastwood, with James Coburn, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you see in that film, you see the man with no name who looks like Clint Eastwood
from behind.
Yeah, well, I think because he fell out with Sergio Leone, didn't he?
Yeah.
So you see him, you see a guy that looks like Clint Eastwood dressed in the same outfit,
poncho,
killed in that film because they were pissed off with one another. But I mean,
chewing that little cigar.
Yeah, but I mean, Clint Eastwood dedicated this film to him and
Don Siegel as well. Who did Dirty Harry.
Was it you guys who were talking about Once Upon a Time in the West?
The West or the America?
No, the West.
Yeah,
where basically harmonica ends up meeting two guys at the beginning.
Yeah,
and they ends up killing them. Apparently, they're supposed to be the two guys from the Dollars trilogy. It was supposed to be Clint Eastwood and one of the other guys. I can't. Having not seen the
Eli Wallach was the Eli Wallach was
Tuco, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, Unforgiven has 3 votes. It's made it on this list. Chris, would have you agreed?
Yes, it's on the lower end of my list, but it is there. It is within the 7. It's number 6 actually on my list. I really enjoyed this film. I didn't see it in the cinema, but I saw it when it was released after that. And I had to study Sergio Leone films on my film degree, and for a few dollars more is my favorite of the trilogy. I agree with Tony that there are better westerns than Unforgiven, but it is a worthy Best Picture winner. So yes, it goes on the list.
And
two westerns on there.
John might agree.
I think it's a really good film.
Okay.
But I'm going to be a dissenter on this one for it making our list.
Okay.
I think it's worth it. I think it got what it had to at the time. But with this list of films, I'm not entirely sure if it's my top 7. So it's made it anyway. And to be fair, I have a great love for The Sons of Katie Elder and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. So
yes, love those movies.
Okay.
And Tombstone.
Tombstone is brilliant. Tombstone is a great movie. We're talking
Huckleberry.
George P. Cosmatos, who the guy did Rambo 2. Is it Rambo 2?
Yeah, Rambo 2.
Yeah, Rambo 2. Tombstone is a fantastic movie.
It is a fantastic movie.
Westerns are underappreciated, man. Westerns are underappreciated.
We're going to have to do a top 5 on
We are
Westerns,
going to
surely.
If we all like Westerns, we should
it
definitely
has been
do one.
requested by a fan already, that fan has asked to be a guest on Top 5 Westerns.
Right.
So,
Awesome. Brilliant.
So we do have that as a one to come. So it's back around to me. I'm going to take it into the 2000s, and I'm going to nominate a film that has won a record of the most amount of Oscars of any film that has ever won Oscars. It won 11 of them. And I'm going to nominate the end of this trilogy, the end of Peter Jackson's epic that is The Lord of the Rings. And I'm going to nominate The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. I think that it is absolutely brilliant. I think all of three movies are absolutely brilliant. I think all of them have pluses and minuses. And one of the minuses of this film is that it doesn't know when to end. But that even that being said, it is absolutely brilliant. I realized that it was winning for the trilogy as a whole, with all of its Oscars, and that is definitely true, but that doesn't make this film any more worthy of being on this list. The set pieces, the visual effects, the cinematography, the score, the direction of this and the whole trilogy are absolutely brilliant. And I would hesitate to say that it's in the conversation, but I would potentially say that it is the greatest movie trilogy that Hollywood has ever made. I know there are, yes, there's Star Wars, there's The Godfather, there's even Toy Story. So yeah,
they will return, Paul, and it's of the Jedi.
And all of those are worthy to compete with that, but I would contest that Lord of the Rings is most definitely up there, and that this film that was nominated for and won 11 Oscars is most definitely worthy of being on this list. For me, Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King is definitely one of the top 7. Tony, do you agree?
Yeah, I think there are better trilogies like Star Wars or Back to the Future or the original Indiana Jones films.
Back to the Future is not better.
Yeah,
it's got a Western in it, Matt. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's
it's
the same. It's the same movie repeated 3 times.
Yeah, that's why it's brilliant. But I am a yes for this because I do love the films, and I do really rate Return of the King. While those other films I prefer, I was a big fan of it. Saw everyone in the cinema a couple of times. I think it is a massive achievement in cinema history for filming all 3 back to back. You know, they gambled a lot on doing it, and won massively.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, and for all the reasons you said, score, you know, the actors really bond together. You know, you kind of root for them. They all feel like they've known each other, even though the characters haven't. They all feel like they've worked together forever.
You believe the Fellowship.
The Fellowship,
you really do. Yeah.
They all got tattoos, didn't they, after finishing?
They did. They did, yeah.
And I mean, I know The Hobbit trilogy has its detractors, but I did enjoy that as well. It's not as good as this. And yeah, definitely feel, you know, what's fantasy winning an Oscar is well deserved, and you know, it doesn't
often happen. So yeah, it doesn't often happen that fantasy is awarded by the Academy, and for this time, I think it well deserved it.
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes they go about more art house rather than what people perhaps enjoy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it's losing, you know, record audience numbers every year.
I think they're going to go up next year after this year's ceremony.
They went up slightly this year, didn't they? But they only bested last year.
Yes. Yes.
That wasn't hard.
No, last year in COVID, it wasn't hard.
So the actual ceremony itself didn't get brilliant figures, but the video
the weird thing is, it's still the most viewed television broadcast outside of a live sporting event in the world.
Yeah, Super Bowl is
so. Yeah, but and the Olympics and the World Cup and etc. But other than live sporting events, it is the most watched televised event in the world. Even with declining numbers. So yeah, but yeah, Lord of the Rings, Chris, is it going on the list? It's got 2 votes.
I thought Eurovision would have been higher. There we go. So yeah, I agree with some of your points, Paul, that the reason why this got so many nominations and so many wins was because the Academy voters, you know, it was the backlash of the snub of the 2 better films in the trilogy. Fellowship and Two Towers are better films than Return of the King. And it's a shame because I do love the trilogy and it is a great trilogy, but it was, like you say, winning for the trilogy and not just for Return of the King. Also, it robbed me of the chance of being the first Aberdonian to win an Oscar because Annie Lennox robbed that from me. So for those two reasons, it's a no from me. Sorry.
Okay. John, are you giving it its third vote?
Simply for the balls and the scale and the technical achievement and what they and the this has to be one of the best series of films ever made for its time. It granted, some of the effects may look a little bit ropey now, but they invented.
It was 20 years ago.
Yeah, no. But what I mean is, for the time, they invented crowds. They invented the composite crowd scenes with the for the Orakai and the things like that. So, and everything is done in the right way. If it needed to be a model, they used a model. They may have enhanced it with some background effects and things like that, but it was done really well. All the hobbits, you think all the hobbits are 3 foot tall. It looks right. As far as the film is concerned, yeah, I maybe not my favorite of the three, but actually, I still. You've got to give credit where credit is due, and Pete Jackson and Weta and everybody blew it away. So yeah, I think this actually has to have a place in the 7.
Excellent. It has made it. We have our 6th film, The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. Matt, what have you said? Yes.
This is a tough one, really, because we've already got 5, right? So, I can't deny the magnitude that the Lord of the Rings trilogy had on my life when I had just left university. And Tolkien's Lord of the Rings was a book that my dad passed down to me as a story he read to me when I was very young. He read it to me every sort of like 3 or 4 years, along with The Hobbit. So I knew that book off by heart for a long time from a very young age. And I'd always said to myself that I wanted to, if I was ever going to get into movies, whether it was like, working behind the scenes, doing, helping with the cinematography, producing, acting, directing, whatever, then there was a few films I would like to have been involved in, which would have been the sequel to Star Wars, which happened, a sequel to Indiana Jones, which happened, of an age where we could have been involved post university, and also The Lord of the Rings, which happened as well. So I really remember I was in Manchester at the time, and the first film came out, The Fellowship of the Ring, and they kept playing teaser after teaser after teaser after teaser in the newly built Manchester Triangle. Printworks. Yeah, Printworks. And the Printworks then, this is really like 1999 to 2000, and you'd go in there, and the cinema was right at the top.
Doesn't exist anymore. The UCI.
Is it not there anymore?
No, the chain doesn't exist.
Right, okay.
It's been taken over by Odeon now. So,
and I used to work across the road at a bar. So I got a job outside of university, and I went to university and studied film and radio TV production. And I didn't have a job in that area after I left university, but I got a job in a bar, and the bar was across the road from Printworks, and Printworks was showing all these, they had a small cinema in there as well that they would play art house movies in, as well as the Corner House, which is an art house cinema in Manchester as well. And the Printworks was a place I went to see. I went to see Memento at the cinema. They were playing short film festivals, so I saw Memento there. But they were also playing massive films as well, and they kept teasing The Lord of the Rings. And they had this huge, great screen, this massive, like Megatron screen in the reception area, where this little clip would play over and over of the Fellowship climbing over a rock face, as they were about to I don't know what part of the fictional country they were in, but the music would play. It was all slow motion. It was beautiful, and I was like, oh, I can't wait for this. Can't wait for this. So I love the movies. They hold a massive place in my heart. Massive place in my heart. But saying that, it's a trilogy, and I don't think sequels necessarily have a place in Oscar Best Film categories. And it's hard because as
Godfather Part 2 might
Thank
argue
you.
with you.
but at the end of the day, that is like the only outlier, because it's a film unto itself. It's not even a real extension of the first film. It's an extension of the person. It's an extension of the character, the single character. This is a story that has been told in 3 separate parts. Whereas the story of the Corleone isn't really the family. It's about, it's Al Pacino. So that being said, for me, this is too long. It's as Paul said, it's too long. It's not my favorite. My favorite is The Two Towers, mainly because of the hour-long battle scene. Which is just phenomenal. But we've only had 5, so I'm going to say yes, because I can't not say yes, because I think this movie is intense and it's incredible, and there are scenes in there that break my heart. There's a scene between Pippin and Gandalf. It's Pippin and Gandalf?
Yeah.
They're in what's it called? The White City at the end.
I want to say Minas Tirith.
Minas Tirith, and yeah. He's scared about dying, and the lines are lifted straight from the book, and he's talking about silver shores and the broaching of death, and not to worry about it, and there's life afterwards, and we are who we are, and it's very relevant to where we are now, and how we view death, and it isn't necessarily the end, it's just how you view it. And the scene with Bernard, what's his name?
Hill.
Bernard Hill, as he's got his corps of cavalry, and he's banging along. It's very Braveheart, Chris. Very Braveheart. He's banging his sword across there. But it's so exhilarating. And yes, the special effects do get a bit creaky now, which is a real shame, because at the time they were absolutely astonishing. But nowadays you just put in your PS4 disc and you can see that kind of stuff on screen and actually play it. But yes, sorry to ramble, but yeah, I'll put it on. Yeah, I'll put it on.
It has 4 votes. It's the 6th film on the list. The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King has made it. I'm going to say 2 little things based off of what Matt has just said. The first Lord of the Rings film, he talked about the first time that he saw it. When I was on the way to seeing my very, very first Lord of the Rings film, I had a car accident. I wasn't driving. And someone else picked me up. And I still made it to the film, even though I was involved in a car accident, because I wanted to see that film so much.
Did anyone else have someone sitting in the cinema with a candle and a map?
No. No.
Just checking.
And then the second thing is that Matt mentioned the Corner House. I was very lucky to have showed a film that I made at the Corner House Cinema in Manchester. So that was one of the very few privileges.
I hope it's still there.
The building it's changed its name.
Yeah,
I believe.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll get to see one of our colleagues' films at cinema soon. Tony, do we get to see a film soon? Oh.
Sorry,
I can't hear you.
When I'm back in my feet after my
excellent.
been repaired. Time.
Tony's short film has been nominated and won many an award. We look forward to seeing it on a screen soon.
55.
Sorry?
55, you said.
50 awards,
155
film festivals, and 10 honourable mentions.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Outstanding stuff.
Can't go home. Coming to a cinema near you soon.
Excellent. Well, we have 6 films on our list. Chris, there's one more slot. Can you get it?
2 more slots.
No, we got 6. Sorry, we've got 6 films. We've got 6 films. My bad.
No, he's talking about the Black Hawk Down already.
Well, he is already.
We have to. I mean, seriously, we've got it.
If we all agree, yes.
I'm amazed that my number 3 pick has not been mentioned yet.
Neither is mine. So let's see.
So another film from the 90s, because God, that decade was so good. Oh my God.
Staggering year. Staggering decade.
And it was the director's submission for his film degree, which he got a first for. And that film is Schindler's List, director Steven Spielberg. This film is just something else. It's the story of the Holocaust, told from a Jewish perspective, and it's just an absolute masterpiece. I'm not sure how I can describe it well. It's I love Steven Spielberg, and I think this is arguably his best film.
We had a debate, and Jurassic Park won out, but only just.
Yeah. I mean, entertainment and
Well, we did our top 5 Spielberg, and they were 1 and 2.
Yeah,
came out in the same year. So,
and it could have gone either way.
Exactly.
It could have done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a harrowing story, and I don't think many directors could tell it well, and Steven Spielberg was one of the few who could and did, and I don't know what else I can say really. That's I feel that needs to be on the list.
Okay, John, Schindler's List.
Yeah. You know what? This again is kind of, I would say that this is kind of Steven Spielberg's, going back to our conversation we had on the last pod about Steven Spielberg. This is kind of like the top of his game, the top of his storytelling powers, taking, and actually the bravery of it, of taking on such a subject. The story of a German who was profiteering off the war, who suddenly saw the horrors of war and wanted to do something about it, and the experience of the people that he was trying to save. It's yeah. Go on. I'll have that on the list.
Nice one. Matt, Schindler's List.
So it's a tough one for me because I don't disagree. It's a fantastic movie, but we have had it on a list before. But does that deny it a part of this list? Does that say that out of the 40 odd films that we've got here, that it shouldn't make the list? Is it better than any of the others? This is how I'm trying to kind of like justify it.
Well, if it's been on a list, do you really want to just keep it?
It's not whether it's not necessarily whether it topped that list or even came close to that list. I think it's more to do with the fact, out of the 40, do I view it as up there? See, it's not on my short list.
Okay.
It's not my short list. No.
Tony.
It's a fantastic movie, but it's just not for me. Out of the rest of them.
I was kind of hoping you would may have suggested the film that my cousin's in that's on this list.
Okay.
My cousin is an Oscar-winning film.
RoboCop 2.
He was in RoboCop 2, but he's also in No Country for Old Men.
Okay.
Yeah.
As the border guard. I think that gives.
Does he get his head blown off by an air pressure pump?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. RoboCop shoots him in RoboCop 2, but anyway, I'm digressing here. Yeah, it's a very important film, by the most successful director the world's ever seen. And is it a film to be enjoyed or a film that's powerful? Because there's other films on this.
They're not mutually exclusive. They can,
No.
Yeah, I would agree. You could do both. I enjoy it. I enjoy the film.
Yeah. It's a harrowing film, but it doesn't mean that I don't enjoy watching it.
12 Years a Slave today, and that was
again another very harrowing piece of cinema.
Yeah, I mean, beautifully shot, brilliantly made. Definitely deserved an Oscar. I mean, I just found it. It was so well made. I found it virtually unwatchable in places.
Yeah.
But I think you have to view it as being, no matter what we say, we're all very subjective in our choices.
Definitely.
And I have to say that you are allowed to say no.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's actually the thing. I think there are certain films that come up and you just kind of go, "Can I?" But the fact is, if it hasn't made you seven,
well, it's kind of in the ether. I mean, it's beautifully shot in black and white. It's got, John Williams' score. The actors are phenomenal. The use of one color to hammer home a plot point was,
Liam Neeson, never been better.
Yeah.
Ben Kingsley,
never been better. Well,
Thunderbirds.
Okay. Gandhi, maybe. I don't know.
I am going to say yes because I do think it belongs on the list.
Well, I'm glad you've said yes because it was my number 3 as well, Chris.
Yeah.
It was definitely making this list.
I'm the outlier again.
You are this one. I think it's an unbelievably powerful piece of cinema that Steven Spielberg. Yeah, it's his masterpiece, and for me, it definitely deserved to be on this list. So, guys, we have our 7 collectively best picture winners, and I will say, if we take it to our personal top 10s, and if we have anything that's got 4+, it considers for that 8th spot.
I think that's fair.
So, starting with Matt, who was the first one to nominate. So go on.
So I've got 6 already that's gone through.
Yep.
Okay, so I've got 4 more because I didn't have a Schindler's List. Okay.
Yeah.
So Amadeus, Platoon, The English Patient, and Birdman.
Okay. Tony, what did you have left as your top of your pile?
Spotlight. I really, really enjoyed that film. I thought it was, although not filmed, maybe as cinematic as the rest, definitely really
powerful film.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Hurt Locker. Again, another powerful film. Great female director.
Patty Jenkins. Yeah.
Hurt Locker was.
Oh no, it was James Cameron's. Yeah.
Catherine Bigelow.
Catherine Bigelow. Patty Jenkins was one of them.
And she won the first female
to win. There's only been 3 female winning directors in history.
Poor show.
No Country for Old Men. And then kind of Schindler's List, Braveheart.
They've already made it, so yeah.
Yeah. So,
okay, so there was no crossover between there. So let's see with me. So on my list, and people are going to hate me for saying this because nobody apparently likes this film, but I was properly blown away by Crash when I saw it in the cinema, and it has stuck with me still. I absolutely love Crash. I don't really care what people say. I think it is an outstanding film.
I like a man who sticks to his convictions.
And it was absolutely brilliant for me. I Had a Beautiful Mind. Again, a film that I think that Russell Crowe was outstanding in. I think it's Ron Howard's best movie. And I think that it's a very worthy Best Picture winner. I had $1 Million Baby, Clint Eastwood.
See, can I say, but I didn't put that on there because we've already had that winner pod already.
It did. And that, I had Platoon in my top 10. And I had, there's a couple of films that made it that were just outside. I also had Rain Man in my top 10. So Platoon is the only one that's got 2 so far.
Come on, Platoon. Come on, Platoon.
Chris, what did you have left?
I'm just going to fire them off quickly.
Go for it.
Titanic, Forrest Gump, The Departed, Argo, Spotlight.
Okay, so Spotlight had 2.
Spotlight's got 2. Spotlight's got 2.
And Platoon had 2.
One's on my list we didn't get around to. Birdman.
That's 2.
That would have had
Birdman's
2.
got 2.
Titanic was also on my list.
And that would have had 2.
Now, Shakespeare in Love was also on my list because I think that is a quintessential British costume drama, which is actually not just a quintessential British costume drama.
I mean, it's a very good film, but again, it's one of those years where it shouldn't have won. So
Yeah.
right.
Ooh, yeah. I also had Forrest Gump.
Would have had 2.
Sorry. Did I say Titanic?
You did, yes.
Okay. Forrest Gump. I also had Platoon
Okay.
and Amadeus.
Okay.
let's go.
That would have had 2.
Thank
there
you,
you go.
John. Thank you, John.
So
Thank you.
So
Respect.
none
of
of
them
our
then.
spares had 4 or more. So
Uh-huh.
we do have our quintessential top 7. And that is Dances with Wolves, Gladiator, The Silence of the Lambs, Braveheart, Unforgiven, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, and Schindler's List are the top 7 Best Picture winners from 1980 to present. We've got to decide which is least deserving. Matt, what is least deserving to be on this list?
Schindler's List.
Tony?
Braveheart.
Okay.
Boo to you, sir. Boo to you.
I'm looking at the genuine list I made, and my lowest ranked movie, I'm afraid, Matt, was Dances with Wolves. For me, Chris.
The only one that was not on my list out of those was Return of the King.
And John?
Probably Schindler's List.
With 2 votes, unfortunately,
man.
Schindler's List has been knocked off of this. Matt, you voted for Schindler's List. So what is the next least deserving of these 6 films left?
Return of the King.
John?
Unforgiven.
With 2 votes, Return of the King has been gone off of this list. We have our top 5 movies. They are Dances with Wolves, Gladiator, The Silence of the Lambs, Braveheart, and Unforgiven. All made in the 90s. So I have voted.
Tell us what your vote is again, because
I voted for Dances with Wolves. Who voted for Braveheart as least deserving? Tony did.
Tony.
And who voted for Unforgiven as least? John. So Chris, of what's left, what's least deserving?
Unforgiven.
And Matt?
Gladiator.
Okay, with 2 votes, Unforgiven is number 5 on this list. Tony, what's number 4? Braveheart. And John, did you vote Unforgiven?
Yes, I did.
So what is your least deserving?
It's beautiful, but I'm going to have to go with Dances with Wolves.
So of the 4 left, Tony's voted Braveheart, John's voted Dances with Wolves, and I voted Dances with Wolves. And Matt's voted Gladiator. Yeah, that's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, so
That's correct,
Chris
yes.
needs
Chris.
a vote.
And Chris, you've got your vote.
Dances with Wolves.
There we go. Dances with Wolves is number 4. Tony has already voted for Braveheart. And Matt has already voted for Gladiator. So, John?
I'm going to vote for Silence of the Lambs.
Chris?
Do you want my other vote now? Or
Gladiator.
that's a 2-2, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I haven't voted.
Oh, right, okay. So.
So there's 2 votes for Gladiator, 1 vote for Silence of the Lambs, 1 vote for Braveheart, which is now 2 votes for Braveheart, Chris. So, John, you pick Silence of the Lambs, but you've got to pick between Gladiator.
So he voted for, what did you vote, Paul?
I voted Braveheart.
Oh, Braveheart. Okay, all right.
So I'll Braveheart.
Braveheart is our number 3. So our number 1 picks, I'm going to go around the order we did this. Is it Gladiator or is it Silence of the Lambs, Matt?
As I said earlier on, Silence of the Lambs is the best film for the last 40 years.
Okay. For me, it's Gladiator. Tony?
I'm with Matt. Silence of the Lambs.
Okay. Chris? And John?
Contender ready.
3-2. The Silence of the Lambs is number 1 and Gladiator is number 2. I'm going to count down the list from 5 to 1. So at number 5 on this week's list, Unforgiven. Number 4, Dances with Wolves. Number 3, Braveheart. Number 2, Gladiator. And the number 1 and best picture winner is The Silence of the Lambs.
Play the sting.
That's a good list. I like that.
That is a
list.
very, very good list of films. That is a very, very good list of films.
Although I was shocked when Matt said Silence of the Lambs as his number 1 pick, it was actually mine as well.
Wow.
That film has so many layers. It's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
It was in my top 5. I'm very happy with it. That
is a fantastic list.
Number 1.
Mm.
It is a quality list of movies there. And we had some quality to choose from. So yeah.
Does anyone want to dive in and talk briefly about their? I know we did list our others earlier, but honourable mention, maybe just one. I don't know if anyone has got anyone they didn't want to mention.
I mean,
I'm actually amazed. I thought it would be a bit more. We were all going more separate ways.
Yeah, I was surprised how we actually came together on the list. Yeah, I mean there was. Yeah.
I think there's definitely a
surprised.
golden period of Oscar, and also we're all roughly around about the same age.
The same age.
Yeah, and I think those movies probably hit us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me
And
being the old man of the
as
group.
well.
Yeah, 4 white men, yes, of the same age, yes.
Yeah.
Although
I
5, yeah, sorry. 5, 4,
so
yes.
I'm just going to quickly say Amadeus, loved it. Even on double speed, it actually looked and sounded great. Hey, I've had an awful lot of films to get through.
I've got to say, I watched it and I wasn't as enamored as I thought I was going to be. I'd heard a lot of good things, and it didn't hit me. I don't know why. So
Milos Forman is a great director.
I really enjoyed it.
Anyway,
yeah.
Birdman. I
enjoy that.
I actually thought that
Michael
was
Keaton, but
yeah. I thought that was really
I thought it was
cool.
very well made.
Jeez.
Just quickly, $1 Million Baby. Bloody hell, that ending.
Great film.
Is that the first time you saw it? Even before you hadn't seen it?
First time I've watched it for this.
Oh wow! Okay.
Wow.
Good.
My God, that ending.
Yes.
And yeah, I've got an awful lot that I missed. I actually liked Argo,
I liked Argo.
Good old fashioned spy thriller in
very good film.
noughties. Crash was interesting, but I think
I
I warrant it only has a couple of moments in it.
I was floored when I saw that movie. I didn't know anything about it, and I was working in Edinburgh. I was working at the Edinburgh Film Festival. I was very lucky to be working there, and I actually met Anthony Minghella while I was there, Oscar-winning and director. And I went and saw it blind, didn't know anything about it, and it floored me. I was blown away. So I went and saw it on my own. Hardly anybody in the theatre. And I was pleased when it won Best Picture. I know there's a lot of controversy around that film, and a lot of people don't like it. But for me, I thought it was brilliant.
I kind of understand it. I also understand the controversy with it, but actually, I do understand it. What do people think of the early 80s?
Yeah, the early 80s were all right.
I've watched a lot for this because I hadn't seen them before. Ordinary People was very ordinary. Amadeus was okay.
I think Gandhi is probably, if you discount Amadeus, Amadeus is one of my favourite films of all time, and I'm glad John mentioned it. I was really pleased about that. I've loved that film for so many years, but I know it's quite niche. Gandhi is probably the best out of the maybe Ordinary People, Chariots of Fire, Gandhi, Terms of Endearment. There, I think Gandhi sort of stands ahead. Quite. He's all right. He's all right.
Rain Man is quality. Is pushing towards the end of the 80s, but yes, I think Rain Man is brilliant.
Didn't like Out of Africa.
I don't think anyone does.
That was kind of like Meryl Streep walking through pretending to care and not.
It's one I haven't seen, unfortunately. I'm afraid.
I would say actually the 70s have generally more better films than the 80s.
Yeah,
80s was a tough one. I think the later 80s is a bit better, to be honest. I mean, I've got a soft spot for The Last Emperor. I know not a lot of people like that, but I watched it alongside VHS from Blockbuster Video when I was in university. I did Once Upon a Time in America, The Last Emperor, Once Upon a Time. I did all these massive 3-4 hour films on VHS, and I just fell in love with The Last Emperor. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. Titanic, I'm with Chris on this. Titanic, I would like that to have been in there, but it holds a special place in my heart anyway. And I'm with Tony. I think The Hurt Locker is an absolutely fantastic movie.
It is a great film. It was just outside my list.
It didn't hit. I remember watching it. It didn't hit me. I got to be honest. It's number 38 out of the 40 films I've seen. The Hurt Locker for me, it was right down there. It just didn't hit me.
It's
below
two
Driving
Avengers.
Miss Daisy. So
Oh wow!
Oh my god!
Aykroyd's in that film.
Just going back to what John was asking about the 80s. So I did like a watch just in the last week of almost all of the 80s Best Picture winners, and I think there were a couple of kind of ingredients that almost guaranteed you a win in that decade. So if you had a historical film about a historical character based on true events that threw in colonialism and flashbacks, you were guaranteed to win a Best Picture.
Yeah.
Terms of Endearment, the only one standing out on that one, all 5 of the best big wins.
That looked like an adapted screenplay.
Yeah, it did. Yes,
that looks like an adapted play, and you really felt that it was a scene.
How about what are the ones that you thought were completely undeserving out of the last 40 years?
Sorry,
Crash.
Yeah, you didn't like Crash. I loved Crash. I know lots of people don't, but yeah.
The English Patient brought me to death.
Oh, how could you
say
that?
It just did.
For me, Matt, I
so
look
romantic.
at it more at the snubs. There's the couple of snubs that are more important, like Indiana Jones up against Chariots of Fire, Pulp Fiction against Forrest Gump.
Pulp Fiction should have won,
and Shawshank. I would have said
Shawshank.
Nobody recognised Shawshank for what it was.
But they're hard to see that because I don't have a list of the other nominees. This is the problem. Like, who was up against the artist? The artist was so undeserving of winning the Best Picture. Terrible. Who was it?
And what
Give me a
Paul
second.
mentioned earlier,
The
Goodfellas.
The artist was up. This was a year where they actually had 10 nominees, I think, or no, they had a lot of nominees. The artist was up against The Descendants, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, The Help, Hugo, Midnight in Paris, Moneyball, The Tree of Life, and Warhorse. So
you know what?
It wasn't
a strong year.
It
Not
wasn't
a strong year.
Although I have to say-
Moneyball's very good.
I do actually like Hugo, but it's just not what you expected. It's not what you expected to be.
And I like The Tree of Life, but you know that. I like Terrence Malick. I don't care what you make.
Oh, you're the one.
I'm the one.
Yeah,
I'm the one.
You are the one. Jesus.
I'm the one that
Yeah.
likes it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Good list.
It wasn't that bad. I think it was probably better than The Artist.
Anything's better than The Artist. Terrible movie.
I didn't see The Tree of Life because of the one before it, that weird New World one.
Oh, see, that's great as well. I love that Christian Bale.
Yeah.
The King's Speech. It's an all right movie. All right, it's a bit of a TV movie.
I enjoyed that. I'm not a royalist, but
what was that up against?
But there was so many better films. 127 Hours, Black Swan.
Black Swan's awesome.
The Fighter, Inception.
The Fighter.
The kids are all right. The Social Network.
That's a good year.
Toy Story 3, True Grit, and Winter's Bone.
That's a good year.
That was a phenomenal year in movies. So yeah, but anyway. That's it's a pod for another time. The movies that missed out. But yeah, thank you very much for everybody joining us. Tony, thank you for being our guest. Anything to sign off?
No, but maybe we should do a early Oscar period.
I think that'll be.
And
if we're still going in a year, that'll be next Oscar season.
And obviously, the Alien versus Predator one. I keep saying.
Yes.
Good idea. I mean, like if you need another person, I'd definitely be up for that.
Excellent. Matt, signing off.
Yeah, love you all. Go to the cinema. Enjoy films. Enjoy the cinema. Enjoy
the cinema and enjoy streaming as well. There is a lot streaming out there as well. So make sure that you enjoy films any way you can. Chris?
I'm the king of the world.
And John?
Guys, you know what I'm going to say. If you want to find us, please find us at 5 on Film podcast on all the socials. If you want to get in touch with us directly, we are 5 on Film at podcast@gmail.com. If you want to leave us an audio message, go to our website at anchor.fm/5 on Film and press the button and leave us a minute's worth of your ramblings, so you can listen to another 2 hours of ours. If you found us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and on your pod scraper, please feel free to find us on YouTube as well. There has been we apologize, there has been a technical error and we are catching up slowly, but
we will be there.
Please get in touch. Please let us know what you want to do. We're doing Aliens versus Predator. See?
Yes. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, all that stuff on the socials, on the podcasting apps, and thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
Peace out.
And the winner goes to
all views expressed in this podcast are that of the individual and do not represent the views of any entity whatsoever which they have been or will be affiliated with in the future.